Hey, it's AP, and today we're making a Pinhead model. Check it out. Last year I attended Jersey Fest Model and Statue Convention, a weekend-long event filled with classes on sculpting and painting, model contests, and a showroom with some of the most amazing commercial and garage kits around. Now, for my fellow model-making nerds, this is the New Jersey equivalent to Wonderfest in Louisville. Now, while I did stay on my best behavior, mostly, I was beckoned to a table by a small chime sound. A quiet, ethereal music box tune coming from a table of old kits and spare parts. As I drew nearer, the music grew louder, and upon arriving, a voice simply asked, "What is your pleasure, sir?" And then I saw it, parts peeking out of a plastic ShopRite bag. Pinhead. Missing pieces, of course, but the main body and pillar of souls was right there. I quickly laid down a stack of money, and as I was leaving, the man said to me, "Take it. It's yours." It always was. Okay, maybe it wasn't that dramatic. This is a 1993 Screamin model of Clive Barker's Hell Priest Pinhead from the Hellraiser series. Back in the day, Screamin models held the license of some of the most awesome IPs from the late 80s and early 90s. They produced mostly 1/4 and some 1/6 scale vinyl kits of such iconic characters like Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees, Leatherface, and of course the Cenobites from Hellraiser. Pinhead was actually sculpted and released 3 times. The first 2 kits being 1/4 scale, which is about 18 inches, and the final one in the late 90s coming in at about 1/6 scale, which is about 12 inches. The first Pinhead kit came out in 1987. It was sculpted by Tom Kuntz and had the iconic holding the box pose that we all know and love. After Hellraiser 3 Hell on Earth came out in 1992, a new sculpt was produced by Jeff Brower called the Pinhead Triumphant Pose, which is very similar to that moment in Hellraiser 3 where Pinhead reenacted the crucifixion while destroying a church.
I am the way.
Great scene. All right, enough backstory. Unfortunately, this was out of the box, so there were no instructions. It was missing its saws, and of course it was missing the pins. It was just a bunch of pieces of vinyl model kit in literally a ShopRite bag, plastic bag. The knives and saws and stuff that came with the original kit were actually made out of cardboard, so I'm going to put them together in Fusion 360 and 3D print them probably on my resin printer. It also came with a box, a lament configuration, which was actually part of the mold, the vinyl mold. Now, unfortunately, I recorded this whole intro first and found out later that all of my audio was not captured. So what you would have seen in the first recording was this all in its individual pieces. I have obviously since put it together and then found out that I had no audio. So we're going to do a quick rewind, and I'm going to show you how to put together a vinyl kit, and then we'll move on to actually painting this beautiful, beautiful model. All right, rewind. Pretty much what is now lost to the MacBook trash bin was the following. Number 1, clean the kit with Dawn or even Simple Green. This kit was in its unfinished form for over 30 years, so it's collected some dust and grease over time. Giving this a nice bath will help make the paint adhere better. Number 2, to soften the vinyl, use a hairdryer or a heat gun to carefully soften the vinyl so you can cut out the parts. When warm, the vinyl cuts like butter. And finally, number 3, to glue everything together, just use some CA glue. Oh, and to get the parts to fit better, you can use a heat gun to warm up the pieces to help mold them for a tighter fit. Before painting, I wanted to fill in the seams. To do this, I used canopy glue. It's a great product that's almost like caulking. It dries clearish and has a little flex to it. To get into the really tiny crevasses, I use these syringe thingies. I'll leave a link in the description, but these are great to get the glue into really tight areas. A toothpick is also helpful to guide the glue where you need it. I primed the Devil's Pope with some Vallejo Black Surface Primer. Since 90% of Pinhead is black leather, this makes the finishing job just a bit easier. if you see those seams, using the canopy glue really filled in those seams nicely, so you can barely see what's going on here. Love it, love it, love it. Okay, so now we're going to start painting in earnest. So I'm looking at my reference photo for Mr. Pinhead, and his color palette is a little bit on the gray side. It's not really a flesh tone. It's gray. So I think what we're going to do is, it's like a bluish gray. So I'm going to use a combination. So I have a ton of Archive X Reefer White. I got this for my, what did I get this for? Something. My X-Wing, I think. And I went a little overboard on it, and this stuff is a little on the expensive side, so I want to use it. I don't want it to go to waste. So I'm going to use the Reefer White as my base. You could just use a regular flat white as your base. And then to gray it up, I'm using a JN gray. This is XF12 from Tamiya, Japanese navy gray. I think this is a good, it's like a greenish gray. It's like the tiniest hint of greenish gray. And I'm gonna just try to mix it up just a little bit to give me my base coat for the head, the hands, and the chest, and the little cutouts here. I'm going to use my airbrush to spray this on. I'm not going to tape anything off, because then I'm going to come back and I'm going to hand paint the black. Do I want to do that? Oof. Yeah. I'm going to hand paint the black, because there's just going to be a lot of taping off. Yeah, I'm going to hand paint the black. Do you like how I convinced myself to do that? So remember how I said I was going to use JN gray? Well, it's a little too green for my liking, so I used a neutral gray instead, which is a much more gray, if that makes any sense. If I were to guess, I'd say I used 5 parts white to 1 part gray to get just the lightest of grays. The Reefer White is pretty thick, so I used some airbrush thinner to get the paint to be the consistency of skim milk. A few coats and he's really beginning to look very Cenobite-ish. Pinhead has these bluish hues as well, so I made a blue wash with like 50 parts water to 1 part blue, then just brushed it on all over, then dabbed it off. This didn't come out like I thought it would. I was borrowing a technique I learned from Ground Affected. He has a fantastic tutorial on skin tones on models. Check out his video, I'll leave a link in the description. I ended up making a slightly thicker mix with about 20:1 water to blue paint to get some nice highlights in his eye area and on his fingers. I'm actually pretty pleased with how this came out. Alright, now let us enjoy a painting montage. I wanted to highlight the grid on his head, so I used a gray panel line marker used for Gundam models. It really helps make the lines pop. Just go slow, as it's easy to go a little crazy and jump a line. You don't want to have to retouch at this point. And now for the pins. I've boiled some water in my tea kettle, and I've dumped the pins into that boiled water to heat them up. And it heats them up to the point where you can insert the pin into the vinyl. It softens the vinyl, and it goes in nice. I actually already put one in. I don't know if you can see that. One in there, and it looks all right. So I'm just gonna carefully, and because the pins are a little, you know, they're thin gauged wire, I'm using a pair of pliers, and I'm grabbing it about a third of the way, quarter of the way up, and I'm just applying pressure, pushing it in. Oh, and that bent. So I'm actually going to go a little bit lower to start. Push it in. There we go. This pin's a little crooked. There we go. And now we're in. And I'll figure out the spacing. But yeah, this is a pretty good method here. I just hope I have enough pins. I want. Just keep panning, just keep panning, 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 gotta keep panning. Now that's a hell priest. I picked up some hooks because what is Pinhead if he doesn't have any hooks? And I got a couple different types of hooks. These are I think number, what are they? Number size 14. And when I got them, they felt a little too big for Mr. Head. And let me just show you what I mean. When you compare the size of the hook to him, it just looks big, right? Does that look big to you? Can you see that with all that fill light behind me? So I decided to get a smaller hook. And so I got these guys. These are size 20. Now, the thing with the size 20 hooks is that now I feel they're too small. So I think if you're gonna go buy hooks, maybe get something in between the two. So between 14 and 20, so maybe an 18 hook, but I'm done buying hooks. I don't wanna buy any more hooks because now I have so many hooks, I don't know what to do with them all. If you need hooks for your Pinhead project, shoot me a line. I will gladly hook you up. All right, so to do these, where do these hooks go? Well, the hooks go on the back of the head. We have one small hook here, one small hook here, and one small hook here. And then on the front, I have so much paint. On the front, we have one hook that goes here. And I'm debating on whether I should use the small hook or the big hook. Let's see. Installing the hooks is pretty much the same as the pins. You heat them up and pop them in. This time I used a lighter though, as the hooks are so small and thin that the cup of boiled water tactic was just a bit too messy. There are some hooks that are molded into the vinyl, so I mixed up some gold and black paint and went to town with a fine paintbrush. All right, what we're going to do now is we're going to make some hooks to come out of the box. And what I'm doing is I'm This is so easy and it's awesome. So I picked up these chains from the hobby store, Michael's. I also ordered some legit scale model chains and wasn't a fan. They were too small, but this necklace that I got was super cheap and will serve my purposes nicely for the scale that Pinhead is in. So I need to make a couple of hooks that will be flying out of the box like they typically do in these Hellraiser movies. And I thought, how the heck am I going to do this? And I picked up some wire, and I was going to try to string it through here, and that just didn't work. But I did discover a cool little trick. I need to find the length that I want, and I'm actually probably going to do like different lengths. So this just looks perfectly fine for my purposes. I have some flush cutters that I'm just going to use to trim this. These are just junky cutters. But, flying out. Well, you can see my little screw here. And then I got the size 14 hooks here, and I'm going to carefully pop one of these on. And to do that, I'm actually going to use a part of the chain. The chain has this kind of circle piece here. I'm just going to bend it off. There we go. I can use that. Maybe I can use that for Pinhead's belt. And then just kind of pop the hook on. Can I do that? And if this doesn't work, I do have some wire that I can use. But I think it'll work. Yep, there it goes. Okay, and then that will go on there, and then we just close it up. Just be careful when you're doing this, if you're doing this, to not pierce your finger with the hook, like I may have done. All right, there. So we have our hook, and it looks great, but it's very limp. Now, to make it stiff, what I'm going to do is I have some very thin CA glue and accelerator. So all I'm going to do is take my CA glue, and I'm just going to pour it on every one of the links. I'm going to do it all the way up to the hook. And we're just going to carefully pull this up. Oh, and it actually solidified pretty quickly. And actually. So then the pieces that I missed, just kind of go back and lift up, and then you can take some accelerator and just spray it from the top. I'm trying to do it into your open bottle. And now we have a stiff hook that can come out of the box. I'm going to let this dry for a little bit, and then we will install it into the box. Oh, that looks so cool. I used gold leaf rub and buff to detail the box, and then installed the hooks with some black hot glue. This is where an extra set of hands would have been helpful, as I found I was trying to keep the wires spread while gluing and in the right position, and it was just complicated. A little dab of glue to hold it to the pillar, and we're good to display proudly. All right, last two things. Pinhead's tool belt. I think it's supposed to be leather, but I had so much chain left I decided to just use that. I used pins to attach them to him. I felt that was appropriate. Unfortunately, the kit didn't come with the tools, so I ended up making them in Fusion 360 and printing them on my resin printer. I'll leave a link to the file on Thingiverse, so you can use them for your Pinhead model. These are just painted with some brown for the handles and some aluminum rub and buff for the blades. I used some thin wire to make hooks for them to attach to the belt. And now, we are complete.
Explorers in the further regions of experience, demons to some, angels to others. We have such sights to show you. The box, you opened it, we came. Now you must come with us, taste our pleasures.
How great is this? Wow. This actually came out better than I thought it would. I'm new to organics, as I mentioned previously. But what's good about Pinhead is that he's so... Like typically skin color has, variations within the tones, but he's relatively the same across the board. I mean, he's in essence corpse colored. No offense. But I feel like the coloring with that blue wash over him really just worked. And we got the dirty fingers here. For not having done an organic before, or at least not since probably 1993 when I first built the original pose of the Pinhead Screamin model, I am perfectly satisfied with my skills here today. This was a ton of fun to put together. If you can get your hands on one of these, I see them on eBay with relative frequency. Pick one up. It's a great kit, easy to build, fun to paint, and you can have a lot of fun with the problem solving of, whether or not you want to do the hooks coming out of the box. And even with this, I'm super happy with how this turned out. And I just glued it to the top so it doesn't fall over. Hopefully my kids don't bump into it. That'll be a surprise. So thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and if you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe to the channel. I'm shifting the channel a little bit where it was kind of all over the place with fixing things and making things. So now I'm just going to focus on making really cool things, whether it's furniture or model kits or props. This channel is all about making cool things. So give it a subscribe if you haven't done so already. If you've liked my previous fixing videos, well, head on over to Fixed by AP for all that goodness. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.